Hey guys, Yips here, coming at you with another video, and this one is going to be about Warlock single target, okay? With the tier 21. Obviously, a lot of stuff has changed since tier 20, and I want to talk about that today, as well as your rotation on single target and how to maximize your DPS. Now, tier 21 is a lot more consistent than tier 20. The reason being is you're no longer running Soul Conduit. Soul Conduit is a huge increase to your shard gen, but it is an RNG increase to your shard gen. Agony will consistently grant you soul shards because it's based on an algorithm. However, Soul Conduit is not based on any sort of math formula. It is just pure RNG. So since you're running Siphon Life instead, and since your 4-piece increases the damage of your base dots and not your unstable affliction, this is going to lead to a much more consistent playstyle on single target as well as DPS gain. So this single target rotation is simpler, but you need to be consistent and you need to make smart decisions in order to make it work. I like it quite a bit. So let's talk about what the tier 21 bonuses are. So when Agony deals damage, there's an 8% chance to increase the duration of Unstable Affliction on the target by 2 seconds. The 4 set, when you cast Unstable Affliction or Seed of Corruption, all targets within 60 yards suffering from your Agony take 15% increased damage from your Corruption, Siphon Life, and Agony for 8 seconds. So the idea with this build on single target is you have Malefic Grasp, which is a 25% modifier, you have Contagion, which is a 15% modifier, and you have your 4 set, which is another 15% modifier, that all mesh together to increase your DPS. And you want to be maximizing these debuff uptimes together. So I'm going to show you guys what I mean by that. So when I have my dots on the target, and I cast a UA, I automatically have two 15% damage modifiers on the target. I have my Unstable Affliction, which is a 15% modifier because of Contagion, and I have my Tormented Agony, which is also a 15% modifier because of my 4 set. Now, the idea with this build is you want to maintain these modifiers to the best of your ability, have as high uptime on these modifiers as you can, and then drain soul to get an additional 25% modifier. So basically, you're just trying to stack modifiers together at good times to do increased damage. Obviously, your cooldowns are kind of going to be like Reap Soul and Soul Harvest, where these are additional damage modifiers going into that. There's a lot of modifiers with this build, so obviously your Reap doubling your traits plus 10% damage, Soul Harvest just a flat 20% increased damage. Having these modifiers go into more of your modifiers leads to a lot of damage when you're able to get all of these active together, and that's the goal on single target with this build. So let's talk about your opener here. Obviously, you're going to be stacking as many of these modifiers as you can. So you're going to cast your base dots. You're going to start by casting 2 Unstable Afflictions, Soul Harvest, Reap, and then Drain. So you have the 15%, the 15%, the 20%, and the 10%, and the 25% modifier all working together to give you a huge amount of burst in the opener. My general opener is 2 UAs into Drain, Refresh Dots, 2 UAs, Drain. This generally will lead you to the end of your Soul Harvest and ends up doing pretty well for me in the opener. Now, after you opener, you don't have Soul Harvest anymore. You're probably low on Reap. How do you want to play? Well, this build does not have a lot of shard gen. You only have enough shard gen to maintain 1 UA on the target at a time. If you're not running Belt, if you are running Belt, sometimes you'll be able to cast 2 if you get a free shard, but most of the time you're only going to be casting 1. So the way that your single target should look outside of those cooldowns is you're just going to be casting 1 UA, draining it, making sure you have that Tormented Agony debuff active. When your dots are about to fall off, make sure you're refreshing them, cast another UA, and then drain, and making sure you're keeping that Tormented Agony debuff active every single time you're draining. Okay, so here my UA falls off, keeping that Tormented Agony debuff active, making sure that I'm maintaining this Drain Soul active while my UA is on the target, and then going about my rotation, okay? So on single target, obviously right now I'm at a high shard count. I'm going to try to drop low here for a second for you guys and talk about what life is like at low shard count, because with this build, you are going to be at low shard count 99.99% of the time on a pure single target encounter, because you do not have a lot of shard gen with this build. So the way that you're playing is, you're just casting 1 UA and draining. You're literally just doing this the entire time. 1 UA, keeping your dots refreshed at good time variables, and making sure you're draining that entire UA off while maintaining this Tormented Agony. Now, the decision making to this build, because obviously what I've told you guys is pretty cut and dry, the decision making with this build comes when you don't have Reap, you don't have Soul Harvest, and you get a Fatal Echo proc or a 2-piece proc, okay? So say you're on low soul shards, you're out maybe 1 or 2 shards, and you're going about your single target rotation of, casting 1 UA, draining it till it falls off, casting 1 UA, draining it till it falls off, refresh your dots, casting 1 UA, you're at low shards, you don't have Reap, you don't have Soul Harvest, but they're coming up, you're going to get some Reap, you're going to get your Soul Harvest back, and you get a Fatal Echo proc or your 2-piece procs, and your UAs are increased on the target. So what I mean by that is sometimes you'll come into situations where you'll cast your Unstable Affliction on the target, and these UAs will outlive your Tormented Agony stacks. Now, I was talking about how it was bad to let this Tormented Agony stack fall while you're on your Drain cycle, so generally speaking, you don't want to be casting Drain Stole without an Unstable Affliction and without Tormented Agony on the boss. Sometimes it will happen, like here, where you'll get this UA to Fatal Echo or have a 2-set proc, and if you're on low shard count and you don't have Reap and you don't have Soul Harvest, it's not the worst idea just to continue to drain those UAs because you don't have a lot of modifiers, and you can build your shard count up a little bit and then have some more UAs to spend with Reap and with Soul Harvest. You don't have to do that, but if you get super lucky and you cast a couple UAs and you get them to proc, you can drain them for additional DPS, okay? So again, I'm just going to show you guys one more time how to do DPS this build with all my cooldowns active and end the video there. So let's go about this. So get my base dots on the target, cast 2 UAs, Soul Harvest, Reap, Drain, letting these UAs expire, waiting for, since these UAs refreshed, I'm going to let my Tormented Agony stack almost fall off, refresh my dots, cast 2 more UAs, Drain, making sure I'm keeping up this Tormented Agony debuff during my Soul Harvest, the UA, draining, keeping up that Tormented Agony stack, refresh my dots here, keeping up the Tormented Agony stack, and you see here, see how I'm getting these UA procs? I'm not actually fully draining these UA resets, I'm making sure I keep that Tormented Agony stack because I have my Reap Soul, because I have all these modifiers going, I want to make sure I constantly have that 15% increase active. But now, I'm running out of shards. Let's say I didn't have any Reap or anything like that. Let's just say I was out of Reap. If I was to get now one of those UA resets, I probably would just let my Tormented Agony fall, and I would just continue draining, okay? So that's how you want to play on single target with this build. It's fairly straightforward. There are sometimes some good decision makings that you can make. It's very important that you maintain this consistent damage output and it doesn't get interrupted, because if you're letting these modifiers fall off, if you're letting your shard count get up without getting your UAs out on good times, you're going to be dropping a lot of DPS. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped you guys out on how to single target with the new tier 21. This week, I will be coming out with a lot of boss guides. I'm going to be starting with Argus and then moving down, going to Coven and High Command, and then maybe Fellhounds, and then maybe a single target boss, something like that. So if you're looking forward for some boss guides, those are going to be coming out very shortly. So thanks for watching. Keep tuned for those. I'll probably come with Argus tomorrow. And thanks so much for hanging out, guys. I will talk to y'all later.